Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this year's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I am great and just want to let you know this episode and every episode coming at you in 2026 will be brought to you by the Thriller Pod Patron Book Club. For less than the price of a novel a month, you too can support the podcast and be the reason that we can make more podcasts. So just head over to thrillerpod.com, click the Patreon tab to learn more, and become part of this amazing book club where the talk never stops. And Chris, I cannot wait for some of the patrons to read The Persian.
Oh, yes.
A quick caveat, though, because we are spoiling David McCloskey's most recent book, The Persian. I really do think this one has to be read twice. It's a very intricate, very complex web of spy versus spy, double agents, Tehran and Israel, ripped from the headline stuff, as we've come to expect with so many of these authors that we read. But it is dense and it is thick and it is heavy. And I wasn't quite sure the first read how much I was into it. But thank goodness I stuck through to the end, because the ending is just explosive and gripping. And then you telling me you absolutely love this book. I was like, what did I miss? I got to go back to it. And I'm enjoying it so much more on the second reread. And all of that dense stuff pays off so well. And I'm having such a better time understanding who's who and which plot lines fit where. Because, man, this thing was messy for a little bit with the timing and the narrative. But once I read it again a little slower and savored it, it's absolutely genius. I think it's a masterclass, this book on espionage writing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And, I want to say Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone. This is our first pod we're recording in the year of our Lord 2026. So I hope you had a nice time off. And I think related to why that is related to why I liked it so much, because, we had kind of taken a pause in the month of December. We did a couple recordings. We were going to try to hustle to get this one along with Dead Ringer, which I'm also really excited about too.
Sure.
I'm about 15 chapters into that, and Chris Howdy has me hooked again. But there's something saying about, and we kind of said this, we might not have said it on the pod, but we said it on our after hours pod that we posted for the patrons only. Like Mike said, if you want that extra content, go and support us. But there is something to be said about not trudging through a book. It's kind of like Project Hail Mary. We weren't planning to do that. I had just finished a book. I think it was on your, little peek behind the curtain here. We share all of our accounts, like our Audibles, our Libby's, Everand. So I think we happened to finish one book on Libby, and we hadn't quite decided what we were going to do next. And I kept on seeing every time I went to the Libby app that you had checked out, either checked out or bought on one of them, Project Hail Mary. And I just started listening to it in my free time. And I slowly chewed it until it caught me that I was literally hiding in the bathroom, or saying to Caroline, I'll walk the dog, so I could listen,
Yep.
doing the dishes. And the same thing happened at the Persian with me.
Yep.
It was slow going first couple chapters. You were texting me because you were a little bit ahead of me. I was like, yeah, I agree with you. It's a little rough. But then I just kept on, I was wrapping presents. I was, cleaning the dishes after parties and putting in the pot. And it had me wrapped that I couldn't wait to get back to it. I haven't had that experience with a book since Project Hail Mary, really, that I can't wait to get back to these characters and these storylines. And because of this is a book that has all new characters, a lot of characters. Obviously we're in a different regime, different area. So a lot of different, new character names. So I actually slowed down the pod. I changed it from 1.7 speed to 1.5, even 1.2 at times, just to I wanted to absorb this. And it was funny tonight. We were talking about books and puzzles and about how when you're reading a book or you're doing a puzzle, you get to that point where you just want to keep either finishing that puzzle or keep finishing that book, but at the same time, you don't want it to end. You don't want to finish the puzzle, don't want to finish the book. Sure. I got to that point. My mother-in-law doesn't she reads books, but we were talking about the puzzle, and I was like, that's so funny because I was thinking about this pod tonight. I'm like, that's exactly how I felt with the Persian.
Yeah.
How I didn't want the book to end. Like, because, you know, I'm just going to say the thing I think that makes this book brilliant is the fact that you know the end. Like, you don't know the actual end, but you know that he's in captivity. You know that he doesn't,
exactly.
like, he gets caught. So you know that, like, right off the bat. And, like, once you understand that, and it's just this, like, peeling back of the onion and spy versus spy, like, McCloskey, for me, just did it again.
Yeah.
I this is up there with Damascus Station, dude, for me. I think this is, dare I say it, better than The Seventh Floor. I haven't finished Moscow X. I really want to go back and actually do that. And I feel like we should cover that in the pod because we never, it was during either one of my paternity leaves, one of my sick leaves, whatever.
Right.
You just talked to David alone for that one. But to me, he's just, I don't know. I really connected with this book. And I guess the other thing I really liked about it, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling, I'll let you speak,
No,
was
please.
I liked how it was just a different story plot. We had the Mossad and we had the Iranians. Like, we didn't have to bring in the CIA at all.
Yeah.
Like, it was a nice fresher, like, to just get away from that, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't have to have, and our character wasn't this big bad. Like, he was a terrible shot. He could barely even shoot himself at the very end, right? When he tried to kill himself. You know, he's just an ordinary guy who obviously had, you know, was able to coerce people, obviously very good at, you know, certain areas of espionage. You have the Glitzman character who reminds me of all, like, the best of, you know, the spy characters that we've read in all these novels we've covered.
Something out of Gabriel Allan, like, like his mentor for sure.
But even you know, Irene Kennedy,
absolutely.
You have, you know, George Smiley in him, like, all these, you know, characters that run assets. I mean, like, this book draws heavily on, like, Homeland, and, you know, just, I don't know. I love this book, and I don't know what we should say, since we're covering this I read it in 2025, but we're covering it in 2026 now. For me, this would have been in my top 5 of 2025 for sure.
Dude, you just absolutely crushed it. I don't even know where to pick up there. You made like 5 or 6 insanely good points. And I got to say, I'm just so glad you're my wingman, because almost everything you just said that I entirely agree with was nowhere near my first experience with this book. I was the complete opposite side, where I was going to recommend maybe we don't cover it. I went so far as I mouthed off in the patron group chat. I don't know if you've been scrolling up in the chat, but
sometimes it gets too much and I miss some. But
at some point I was like, I don't know, guys, we might have to drop this one and strike it off the reading list. I'm like 30% in and I'm lost. I got to be honest, the first third, I got all these little snippets of people's lives. I knew Cam was in detention. I knew there was an assassination of a scientist and his family in the car. I knew, I think maybe Mir or maybe it was Mir and Yael, I think, were one of the Israeli couples that were attacked first. And there was the Jerusalem attack as well, you know, with the drone. So I'm like, okay, there's these snippets of really cool scenes. I had to be honest, though, I was not bought into any of the characters, either them personally or their arc. So I'm hitting that halfway point. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to keep going. And thank goodness I did, because everything you said comes true once this book falls into place. And that's why the puzzle analogy you made is spectacular. When you are at that stage of a puzzle where you just don't see it, you like can't envision yourself getting to the end.
It's frustrating.
It's just
You're
so
like,
frustrating.
I have all these pieces and I don't know where to put them. Yeah.
Dude, it's so frustrating.
But you finish the border and now you have to start for real, right?
Maybe you have the border, or maybe you have like clumps of 5 or 6 and you're so excited when those few snap together. You're like, shit, I don't know how to place this. Like, where does it go within the border? And or you run out of those border pieces and then you got to make that next hump of filling in the middle. Well, fortunately, everything, I would say halfway through this book, maybe a little later, starts falling into place, particularly around a lot of the Tehran stuff. Istanbul, when they go to Istanbul.
Yes.
And that is the primary, I would say maybe even kind of like the culminating action that brings Roya into the story. And once we see Glitzman having to, at first, basically capture Roya. But then Glitzman has this grand plan to turn it over to Cam, the dentist, to kind of woo her and recruit
as
her,
an asset.
run her as
Yeah.
an asset, basically this double agent. And once all that falls into place, I'm like, oh my God, now I understand the assassination of the scientist and the car with the family. She's the widow and what she's looking for, right? She's looking for revenge. So when Cam sells her the story that, they're basically like internal investigations and they're trying to get, Zionists and spies and the Mossad out of the government, and her boss is compromised and she was falling for the boss. I just think all those complexities fell into place. And when I hit that stage of that puzzle clicking together, and I had like a 5-6 piece chunk and was able to place that chunk in the corner and snap it in, it felt so good. And then, like a puzzle, the last third of this book, when you see the final picture, you think you know what it's going to look like in the end,
Right.
but the things start falling into place. And you actually, I don't know about you, but every time we're getting Cam in his detention cell and he's talking about putting back in his mind, and I got to say, I mean, David McCloskey being an insider in the industry and being a CIA analyst and knowing not only the realpolitik of how some of these geopolitical things go down and who the major players are, but also just knowing the internal psychology of someone in captivity or someone being run as an agent, as an asset. He knows the human mind under those stressful circumstances so well. I don't know if it's personal experience or so many cases he's studied. He's kind of able to put himself into the job so well that these characters, they sing. Every single one of them and what they're going through is almost like musical notes on a beautiful composition. Just who they are, what their motivations are, their complexities, their little quips in their dialogue, all just hum together so nicely. And I got to say, I didn't see that. I missed the forest for the trees in the very first half of the book. So once you stick through it, I think once Roya gets recruited, once you see Cam running her, once everything Glitzman set up, the training in Albania, recruiting Cam in his dentist chair, that makes its way into my limerick later, but the dentist chair scene where Glitzman recruits him, all of that has this massive payoff. Even making sure he gets an office in Tehran to run his dentist office has a storage room or was a separate room. Storage room would have been too small. They had to lock it and use it for their supplies. They've been gathering all these supplies. Even the information they're having Roya move, like she's doing all these small little odd jobs for her boss, and she doesn't really know what unit, what was it called? Unit 840 or 870, inside the Iranian intelligence. She doesn't even know how these things all add up, but ultimately she starts giving Cam little bits of information that Glitzman's able to use. It all fell into place. I think the puzzle analogy is perfect. And not to mention your other point, like I said, you made a million really good points. Having none of the Americans involved, you're right, it was refreshing. It didn't need to become jingoistic, patriotic, American government, CIA story. It was a spy story without needing and necessitating the CIA's involvement. And that was really pleasant. I mean, that was refreshing to see in one of these books. So hats off to McCloskey. I think not only because of this book, but the whole slate of his works, he will go down as one of the best American espionage writers and spy novelists, dare I say, of all time, but definitely of this generation.
Oh yeah, I'm convinced.
Absolutely.
And while you were saying that, I think another point of, maybe this is naive of me to to think like this, but not having any sort of patriotic, brouhaha, like I'm rooting for the American in the story. When you boil it down, it really does like put into perspective, for at least for myself, this idea of war, right? Where, you have these both sides and you even have that confrontation, right, between Arik and between the general, where, they're talking about like once he gets, he actually captures him. He says like, they're essentially, arguing the same side of the same coin, with caveats, we don't, the Jews don't take any collateral, the other ones do, like, whatever you want to essentially justify, make yourself feel good at night. When you think about that, it really like boils it down like, wow, it is a battle and like you do have to pick a side, but like in the end, it's both sides are fighting for a reason, a cause,
Right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
and in this one, the other thing that really sung to me was pinpointing the idea of hierarchy
Sure.
and this idea of like whose lives are worth more than others. And I think that's at the end when you find out that Glitzman got Cam out, right? That to me was like, because in the beginning, Glitzman puts it plainly, like, yeah, he's running Cam. Cam is a quote unquote Jew, but he's not like, he's expendable. And he says
he's just doing it for the money. He's not really doing it for the homeland or the Zionist cause. He needed to find a guy who didn't, fall into that whole trap. And even that Purim scene where they're at synagogue and Glitzman in his mind is just kind of like goofing off about it. And he's like, I don't even take half these stories seriously. The cause is different for Glitzman, I think. Well, especially after what happens to his family. Oh my goodness.
No, and I think that's when it clicks in. It's like,
it changes him. Yeah.
When his daughter dies, it's
a different ball game.
It's a different ball game. And the fact that, and I feel so bad for Cam. Like,
I think that's also when he realizes he'll do anything to save Cam, though. I think prior to that point, Cam was a business proposition. He was just in it for the money, and he knew he was in it for the money, and therefore it made it a little easier. You don't have some crazy compatriot that you have to stand by your brother in arms kind of, deal. He was just money. But after I think he loses his family, I think he realizes this is more personal than that. And we can't become them,
And I think he also sees the good in Cam.
Sure.
Even though, Cam is surely purely in it for the money. But, he did not need to stay. He could have got out. It's his own fault that he got captured.
He goes on an arc as well.
His own stupidity. His arc is great. And this idea of like, it's very subtly done. I think he mentions it like 2 or 3 times. The secret, right?
Absolutely.
We don't know what the secret is until the very last chapter.
Yep.
And the fact that he lied and he kept that through his whole 3 years of captivity, amazing. That to me was like, wow. I wasn't expecting that. I knew that there was going to be something. I kind of had a feeling that, Cam was going to like be saved or like somehow he was going to get out, or I don't know. I didn't know how, but I was not expecting him to show up and to have Roya and Arya like be there at the, at home. He says, cause like, he titles it, present day home. And they're living in that house.
That California house. Yeah. The one that Glitzman, that was creepy when Glitzman recruited him, and Cam's like, I never spoke to anybody about this California house. I never even said it. But he Google searched it.
The dentist chair scene is amazing. It shows you like everything that people are watching, or, they can find out anything from our Google searches.
He just searched it a few times and they knew he was looking at the real estate, and all of a sudden they found what he wanted and they gave him a path to achieve it. And so Glitzman was using him due to all this, surveillance, probably using Pegasus or whatever, they were tracking.
They say
him.
Medusa, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what they say. Yeah. Think about it though. From the dentist chair to these guys doing whatever it takes to save one another in the end, Glitzman sacrificing whatever he has to sacrifice of his cause, his belief, and maybe even his country's security to get Cam out. What Cam did to sacrifice for Roya, how far we've come from the dentist chair scene.
Sure.
Like, if you really step back and look at these characters long term in terms of the whole book length, each one really goes on an amazing journey and very different journeys, but they're so intertwined. There's no way everybody comes out on top as they did if they didn't go through that together, if they kind of didn't have trial by fire.
Even Roya, right? Even Roya with like losing her husband to then having like a pretty nice job with the Quds Force, knowing what she's doing, to like falling in love with, essentially her boss.
The boss.
To then being run as a double agent, finding out that she's a double agent, hating the man who's like put her in this impossible situation, because she's literally screwed, right? She can't go back and say that, oh, I didn't know he was running me as a double agent. She would be killed.
She's done.
So like he literally puts her in the most impossible situation to then ultimately forgiving, I'm taking her opening the door at the very end as forgiveness for
Absolutely.
Cam, getting her out, you know, like for her to go on that arc. I don't know.
Well,
Those
she
three
saw what
characters
Cam
to
did.
me.
And I think she saw it as genuine. I
Yeah.
think there were little moves along the way where Cam
Because
realized
there was that interesting line where she says, "You are, what does she say? You're not an honest man, or you're not a." She says she calls him like, you know, you're a player. Like you've wanted to bed me. You wanted to be, you know, but at least you haven't done it yet. And you know, it's like, I don't know.
she gave him
I
props
wish
for that.
I wish I had the quote. You know, you're the quote guy. I'm not the quote guy. But
Yeah. No, I didn't pull any out here, but there are a few gems.
For her to like turn and to realize that, yeah, he found a purpose in life. You know, like to his one purpose in life was once he got caught, got her safely, and was not going to give her up. He was willing to stab himself with a sharpened blue crayon,
Right.
to save that secret. It's just powerful.
That crayon is such a motif. It's like a totem.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about I mean, maybe this is a point of contention because, you know, in the beginning, it's a little bit, you know, discombobulated, but what did you think of this idea of parsing it between, all right, we're doing flashbacks. The flashbacks are actually like him writing down this confession, you know, that he's had to write down like thousands of times. Like, how did you like that writing style that McCloskey introduced here?
It falls into the exact same pattern that I described before. I didn't like it at first. I thought the flashback was just going to be some cheap way of telling us a story, but you have to kind of give it an edge. And so I thought it was maybe this cheap maneuver to kind of take a story and just be like, if I just told the story, it wouldn't be as compelling. So I'm going to tell it in captivity, and I'm going to have the stress of the interrogations and the beatings and all of this woven in just to kind of add that little bit of jazz
Music.
to it. Yeah, and playing that song over and over, and the thing about the crayon and
Tim
the
McGraw.
beating.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think this is just going to serve a limited purpose and just to make it raise the stakes a little bit, if you will.
Sure.
In the end, though, and probably at that point where I finally needed to know what the secret was, like you said, you hit a point in this book where I wanted to go to work just to have a commute. I just wanted to have a 40-minute commute where I could listen to this. And I didn't want to get to school, or on the drive home, I didn't want to pull into the driveway. But I did not hit that point until everything came together. So the flashbacks at first confused me, particularly the sexual escapades and this tryst with
his friend.
Amir
What's
Ali.
his friend's name?
Amir Ali, I think. But it turns out that was a drill. That was like part of their practice and training. And then they're joking about it.
No, that was just it was his birthday present that he like concocted this story that they were going to get. You know, essentially he hired two gay guys to represent police.
It was a gag.
It was a gag. Yeah. And then at the very end, it's just, oh, she's a stripper that has a, you know.
Anyway, it was a turnoff for me in the beginning because I was like, what the hell are we doing here?
It adds to the confusion for sure.
It added to the confusion at a time where I really did not need more confusion.
Yeah.
But that was slightly saved when I get to see the flashback of when they take, who did they capture at first? Did they get Gore Bunny? And that takedown where the vendors are there and they almost have to call it off at the last minute when Amir Ali dies. And
yes.
That's when shit got real. And so bouncing between the flashbacks,
I think that's a big turning point for Cam too, is when the death of his friend.
Agreed. And it was his friend who he talked about, who he recruited. He got into Glitzman's game. And he talked so much about the getting out and what their life was going to be like on the other side. And so Amir Ali was almost a symbol, I think, of what it would be like to get out, be on the other side. And this is like your sidekick who's going to get there with you. And when he loses him in that failed op, and then Glitzman abandons him and Glitzman says, you got to stay, I got to get out. I just feel like that raised the stakes a little more. And that's when it started clicking for me with the flashbacks. And then, like I said before, all of that really, really came together with Roya. And when Glitzman and Roya are confronted at when her boss dies, which did they drug him or was it a natural thing? and Glitzman just responded to it and had what's the woman's name? The other woman on the team, Rivka.
Yeah,
Rivka and Glitzman come in and save the day.
I take that to be that like he just naturally was, he partied a little bit and then he just had a heart attack, and
I think so.
They took advantage of it by
Exactly.
making it, seem that he had this crazy addiction and or whatnot. That's how I read it, not as anything else nefarious. But yeah, I agree that like in the beginning the writing style adds the confusion,
right,
and makes it a little bit of a slog to get through. But then towards the end, I like that we had that writing style because I feel like it helps pay off the final sequences even more, because we went through his journey in captivity, and like seeing these flashbacks written in his word, and not just being told this, it gives it a little bit more credence for me.
Completely. I took back everything I said about it being kind of a cheap storytelling device just to add some flair. No, I think it became integral to the story that he wanted to tell, of how about how everybody went on an arc, and if any one of them didn't go on that arc, they would not have gotten out on the other side. They wouldn't have saved Roya. Glitzman wouldn't have traded for Cam. I think everyone had to go through that, and seeing the pieces again. It's a puzzle. The storytelling is like you get to see the puzzle being taken apart and put together. Like they show us the puzzle completed very early on. He's in prison,
Sure.
But that was only like stage one of the puzzle, and then there's an even bigger piece of the puzzle that we didn't know was there that you tack on and kind of unlocks the whole thing. And so I think that can only work with a very creative storytelling device, such as the captivity. And then the crayon stuff in the beginning, I was like, I get the emphasis on the crayon. It's like just something to bring us back to these scenes and buy into these scenes and see what this guy is going through. But when I thought about it a little bit deeper, it's kind of like in, what was the most recent, the Seventh Floor, where our main character, come on, tell me his name, Sam Joseph. When Sam Joseph is in captivity, counting the stars on the wall.
You need to have something.
Yeah, and Cam even reports at one point how many stars are on the wall. That crayon kind of took me back to what Sam Joseph was going through, sitting in that cell, trying to hold on to some semblance of hope, and also trying to keep a secret locked away. And once I saw that, I was like, the crayon is a really cool way of doing that. And
at the end, when they only give him red crayons, and he almost loses it.
He almost loses his shit. Right? Oh yeah, because he needed that blue one. Yeah, I thought that was really cool in the end. But again, I didn't buy into it at first. By the end, I was all bought in. When he gets the wrong color crayon and it just shocks his world, turns everything upside down, I was like, wow, to be in a space where that's what basically breaks you as a man. Wow. That's a dark place to be.
Dude, I think like the culmination of the writing style, of the story arcs, the character arcs, just really cement this book to me as like one of the best books of 2025 that I've read.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I want to finish my second read through. I didn't completely finish my second reread, but as we do the scorecard here in a minute, I'm going to tell you what my score would have been like at the 75% mark of this book. And then what it is now, having almost completed a second reread, and had you explain a lot to me and break it down for me and see your enthusiasm for it, this might be the top book that my score just skyrocketed up from first read to second read, or from first read to discussion with you to second read. So appreciate that. I really need my wingman for this one, or else I would have been singing a different tune tonight.
That's the part of the point of this pod is just to like hash out. A lot of times we're on the same page. We click, but there are other times where we read something, whether it's me, you're like, oh, I saw this, and then like, oh, it opens up things, because we get into our our comfort zones, or our our arcs that we typically go down, and then oftentimes we shut ourselves off from truly experiencing a book. That's why I think like
completely,
this is one of those books that if we had set a date that we had to read it, and I just powered through it 2 times speed, I'm listening to it while I'm at work, while I'm doing something else, like again, I don't think I would have been as passionate about it. But
I agree.
the fact that I had some time, like I was, I went through it. I began to, you know, really get into it, and then really want, like you said, like you're driving home, I do an extra lap around the block just so I
Yep.
can finish a chapter.
Dude,
So
completely.
what did you think of the narrator? This is a new, different guy than we've gotten from the other McCloskey books.
Right. And I think, and I looked up his name, but I didn't look up his background. I think he must be either a native speaker. He had an accent that I think really worked for just this for this genre, for this location, being a Middle Eastern book. What was his name? Fire Al-Qaisi. Probably butchering that one, but I don't know what else he might have done, but it was absolutely the perfect book to bring in someone of that background and that skill set. Oh, another thing, this alone might bring me up a couple points on the scorecard. The kids, whether it's Alia
both
staying with Raya's sister, or I think it's Oriana, and Glitzman's wife, who she was a little funny character at times. Almost a little bit reminded me of one of the women in I.S. Berry's The Peacock and the Sparrow.
Oh, yeah.
I think she represent a little bit of that domestic life that's a little too comfortable, like has the comforts of home and doesn't really maybe, or is insulated. Her husband is trying to insulate her and her family from the realities of war. And she kind of had a few little ditzy kind of moments that made me think, like, who is she and what's her role in all this? And then ultimately, they couldn't protect Oriana and her. And I think that was tough. But I think the kids were read great. The kids were really well done. And every time they were brought in, the voice inflection change by the narrator just really gave you, it kind of tugged at your heartstrings, knowing that they're growing up, they're living in this world. And as much as these men are attempting to insulate them and protect them, ultimately they're vulnerable. And unfortunately we saw that with the book.
Should we institute a new section of our pod where we read some comments that people read on Audible? Or so, because it's interesting, because I feel like I didn't look at these comments before we started talking, and I don't think you did either. But all right, this one, worst of his books, gave him 4 stars, but worst of his books, last 5 minutes saved it, absolute terrible storyline. We have author is ambitious with the timeline, or really great at the start. Both story and narrative improve markedly over time. Engrossing story. I really wanted the Persian. What was the other one I read? After an exhausting effort to develop the characters, it then gets better. Like,
I've read a few on
remarkable journey. Like, mixed integrated. Like, we're not off base with our comments here. It seems like a lot of people have similar comments, but
I think that's what I saw as well on a few Goodreads comments. You could tell the people who almost gave up on the book or were so tired from having to track the timeline and the who's who that they almost didn't get the pleasure of that riveting ending. So, and you could tell the ones who maybe savored it, took their time, slowed down. This is definitely a book to slow down and savor a little bit more, because when it comes at the end, it comes heavy. And if you kind of missed it along the way or kind of checked out along the way, it might not hit as hard as the end if you're not as bought in. So curious though, the people agree with us. We kind of each are starting to see eye to eye on this. What does that mean on the scorecard though? Because this is not a traditional thriller pod, shoot 'em up, summer read, Italian job style, heist or Ocean's 11 heist, or one of these thrilling stories we tend to read. It's a bit more of that slow burn, almost that British influence, as I feel like we've seen David McCloskey do.
Sure.
He's given credit to Le Carré a lot. You mentioned him before, and the Little Drummer Girl I never read, but I know it's one of his favorites. And a few comments that I saw said there's a lot of influence from that book. So I wonder what that's all going to mean for our scorecard, not being one of our typical shoot 'em up style kind of thrillers.
So for me, action and suspense, right? When we do get the action, particularly around any of the drone scenes, the killings, whether it be the killing of Roya's husband, we get the death of the two Mossad agents in Jerusalem, the attack on Glitzman's house, and then also any of the ops that go on, right? The one where his friend dies, the one that ultimately gets him, where they actually capture the colonel, but what's his name gets taken. All of those are just written really well, and super suspenseful. So for me, I don't know, if I just take that, it's probably an 8.
Yeah.
I think, the rest of the story being suspenseful, I think elevates it up enough to maintain that 8. So I think I would give it an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with an 8. Especially because I'm trying to isolate this from, as I was reading a few of those, I was confused at the context of where it fell and who it was. A lot of the names were starting to overlap for me. So that's going to hit probably plot or buy-in a little later on. So 8 for action, and then particularly if you consider the ocean at the end, getting to the beach and in the waves, in the surf, getting shot at, you don't know what happens. I'm going to include that action scene as well for a bump. So I think an 8 is where I'm going to land.
Yeah. Plot. So for me, I think the plot is where it gets hit the most. I think because of that slow plot in the beginning, we sung the praises of the way the story was told, that it comes together at the end, but in the beginning, it is tough. Yeah. So I don't want to ding it like Sue, like a 6.5, 7.
Yeah, I see. Plot we do call plot/pacing, so that's why I think we can go down to 7. Can we go lower? To spread out the dings across plot and buy-in, I don't think I'm going to go lower. Yeah, true. I don't think I'm going to go lower. I'm going to stick at a 7. And if you combine, if pacing is the miss in the beginning of the book, plot is actually the win at the end of the book, because how everything was plotted out makes the ending and the reveal that much more special, or makes the character arcs so much more special to see where they end up. But man, the start of that arc is really tough to get going. It's like a bell curve, but that's shifted entirely, all the way to the right.
And I think that's where you can then dig further into buy-in, because this book takes a long time to get you bought in.
And I got to be honest, I mouthed off in the group chat, guys, you might not want to read this one, not too sure. Then after speaking to you and after finishing it, I wrote back, whoa, this is an instant classic. This is actually a piece of literature and espionage fiction.
I really, this is the one where, a lot of times you have to take it as a whole.
You do.
You finish it, reread it. And I went back and I reread, certain chapters, just, and even then, just certain things stick out because little things that are going to be important later on that you might not have realized in the moment. So yeah, but I'll dig buy-in. I think I'm going to give it a 3.
3. Yeah. Yep. That's what I was thinking too. In the moment, I would have gone a little lower, but man, he got me bought in towards the end. Bad guys, you mentioned something before, which was really interesting in that, yes, this is a conflict of epic proportions. Israel versus Iran.
Age is oldest.
Exactly, right. The Caesarea
Our
division.
President says it's been going on for 3,000 years, right?
But then also thinking about quite literally the last 24 hours, last
I know.
Wild.
Protests.
I mean, you've got the Reza Pahlavi, you've got going on social media encouraging the protest. I'm wondering if he's going to have this triumphant return. I mean, what reports can you trust about? Is the regime collapsing? Are the Ayatollahs on the run? Are they in hiding? You don't even know what to trust in this digital age, but at the same time, something is brewing. And this conflict is one of centuries in the making, millennia in the making. But at the same time, this story is told through the eyes of individual men. It's a small story. It's big implications, but it's basically two hardliners, Gorbani and Glitzman, two true believers doing whatever it takes, playing the game the way the game is designed to be played. It's a chess match between the two, and it's really just them and all the pawns they have on the board moving them around. It's not some tale of global implications. So as much as the context is a real world, is geopolitical, it could affect, the entire globe and what it looks like. This story doesn't need to use that to build drama. It needs to use the individual relationships, the psychology of the people. And I think that's a stroke of genius to say, it's a big story. I'm going to tell it in a small way. And that really paid off. So we don't need a big bad. We don't need Nuke on the Loose. You don't need villains who are plotting in a den, sipping on their, drinks. You don't need any of that. You need real life people going to work, showing up to do the job, put their lives on the line, their family on the line, go into that moral gray zone, use people, manipulate people.
Yep.
And you know what? That's how you got to play the game. And so I think that is more compelling for both good and bad guys than having this stereotypical arch villain, pulling strings, being an evil mastermind. So I love it.
And I think McCloskey does a good job of trying to stay as apolitical, if that's a good term,
sure,
to say there, or like or I guess to me he paints Glitzman just as much of a bad guy as he does, the Colonel.
Completely agree. Until the end, when he saves, when he loses his family and saves.
Sure, until the end. But in the beginning, they're both, just like you said, they're both hardliners. And Glitzman's not even like a. He believes in the country, not like, for his.
He's not a religious zealot,
right? He's this,
a nationalist.
Yeah. But it's just interesting, like, to juxtapose these two guys together, and the Colonel doesn't do anything that's like super egregious, other than try to kill Glitzman, and in the by mistake, or by not mistake, but he happens to kill his daughter,
kill
like
the family. Yeah,
that is like the only thing that really like shows the discrepancies between the two sides. What Glitzman would argue is like the good versus the bad, right?
Yeah, the collateral damage.
The collateral damage aspect of it. So I don't know. I feel like McCloskey just does a great job of like just painting the story.
Nails it.
It's not black and white. It's gray. It's gray all over.
Yep, completely, dude. I think that could it be a 4? Could it be a 4.5 for bad guys?
I'm gonna go 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 4. I don't think I want to give it a little bump just for this like philosophy of it, but at the same time, we don't spend time with Gorbani, and we don't spend time with Abbas when he gets shot. He's Roya's husband, the scientist. We didn't have the scientist being manipulated. What is he working on? Did he build the drones that they used to kill Mir and ultimately to kill Glitzman's family? I just think a little bit more time with some of them on page, and that could have been a 5. Could have. Good guys, again, who's good, who's bad? Like
to me, I'm giving good guys mainly to it's like
Cam
how do
Roya,
you feel about Cam and Roya? Yeah. That's what it comes down to. How do you feel about these two characters that were used in multiple ways by both sides? The one has her husband taken away from her, and it's like this other line that Glitzman says, he's just because he's a scientist and he's making a good money, you should have do something different, like go to Paris, take that internship instead. Like, it's like, all right, like, but things aren't like that black and white. It's very interesting, these two people who are put in a position. She's not a hardliner at all. Like, she, her sister has to tell her, don't be a whore. She like wants to experience life,
Yep.
And the same thing with Sam. Like, this guy who, his family was Persian. His dad had this fervor of like, wanting to live in the homeland, died because of it. He's a half-assed dentist, can't really make it. Obviously has this dream of going to California, just wants to get away. Could care less like what religion you are. Yeah, he's a Jew. Hasn't gone to synagogue in years. Like, but then in the end, like we said before, both of these characters have this great story arc of, I think they find like a meaning for themselves. Like Cam definitely finds a meaning for himself, and I
Sure.
think his true meaning is to save Roya, to get some sort of redemption for whatever he put her into. And
Yep.
I feel like he gets that. And then for Roya to be put in that situation both times, and then to come out of it, and then actually forgive, what I'm taking as her forgiving him.
I agree.
It's just great. So I don't know,
And
those
becoming
two,
the mom. I think
right?
a big part of her arc is
she's not she's a mom, but she doesn't want to be a mom.
she was afraid to be a mom. She loved Alia too much. She was afraid to get close to her. I think a few times on the phone, she hung up when the daughter realized
She
it was
said
her.
she likes her alone time. Which parent doesn't like their alone time?
No, for sure. But it almost, she had to go through all this to realize one of the all the things she's been through, and one of the biggest like challenges she had to confront was that she can ultimately be the person to raise her daughter. That is one of the most important and hardest things for her to have to learn. And she goes through all of this, being recruited, working as a double agent, being in compromising positions, having an affair with your boss, losing her husband, and all of that she needs to go through to realize, I can be the woman who raises Alia. I can get close to her, and I can be a good influence for her. And man, wow. Yeah. And the ending, just opening the door and like letting Cam into that part of her life after he's basically the one who fucked her, but then also the one who saved her. And they had this romantic thing from the beginning when there's a strand of hair coming out of her hijab, and very early on. So Cam's automatically having sexual tension. Yeah. The sexual tension is off the charts. So Good Guys is really, really good. My one ding that I can't go above a 4 is some of the secondary and tertiary characters. A few, like Amir Ali, memorable, but he gets lost in the shuffle. He played a big role early and gone. Rivka was awesome the whole way through. She was used in a few cool ways, gathering intel. Johnny on the spot, the one who cleans things up, thinks on her toes. I would have liked to be more involved with her. I think a little more time with her could have been good. And outside of them, I mean, the sister, Alia's aunt, Raya's sister, played a little comedic relief with the "Don't be a whore" line. She was touch and go on the phone, raising the girl, but it almost just seemed like a vehicle to get rid of the daughter and have the daughter occupied with something else going on. So some of those tertiary characters I didn't think brought as much to the table as I kind of would have wanted them to bring. They were just kind of sideshows. And so for that, just 1 point docked. I'll go 4 out of 5.
This is a book that definitely relies heavily on, if we want to call them the two main goods and the two main, like, quote unquote bads of Glitzman and the general, and then having Roya. And I don't know. I think I'm going to go 4.5. I'm going to give it a little bump. Ding it. A little bump.
I think that's fair. It's crazy. It ultimately is a pretty small story,
Yeah, it is.
Small group of people.
Very, very simple.
But one of my critiques is there were too many people. So it's like there were too many names. But at the same time, the main drama is that there are very few people in this game.
It's these 4 people.
It's main 4. Exactly. So that's my problem of why I docked the point, is that outside of those main 4, the other ones weren't that well established, or I don't know.
I did like the daughter.
Yeah, both daughters, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. What about the setting? McCloskey tends to do a pretty good job with the setting. How did you feel about this one?
Might be unfair, but I kind of want to compare it to Damascus Station here, of every dead drop, every training, every demonstration. I remember a scene where they were demonstrating early on, and I think when the girl gets her jaw broken, I didn't feel as immersed in it as I did that book. And maybe it's not that fair, but I just know what that book did for me and how that took me to the streets of Damascus. And here, I didn't get that fully for Tehran. I felt it. I felt the city a little bit. Istanbul, I felt Istanbul when they went there. Sweden, we were there very briefly, training in Albania. None of them truly popped. So they were all really good, but I don't think any of them rose to the occasion of that perfect 5. So I'm kind of in midland between 3 and a 4. It's almost the way The Seventh Floor was so good at some of the DC stuff, but didn't really perfectly nail it down. Same thing with Moscow X. I mean, being inside the some of the discussions going on, I knew the discussion was going on. I like the cell Cam was in. I felt like the cell that Sam Joseph was in the Seventh Floor was so much more visceral to me, where I can't really picture the cell Cam is in. I could picture the two men, I could picture the people, I could picture the crayons, but I don't know if I picture the cell around them. So there's like some very good elements of setting, but I'm not getting the complete picture with the full texture. So I don't want to go down to a 3. Is that too bad? Is that too harsh?
No, I was gonna say that too. Like, for me, it's not like the book, like where Damascus Station took us to the streets of Damascus and
Right.
made us feel like I did not feel like I was in Tehran. There's other books that I've read that have done a better job at that. Even Tel Aviv or Jerusalem when we're there. But at the same time, he does a decent enough job putting us in different places and describing the situations, the actions
Correct.
that they're in a given setting.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it was kind of like the cell was hazy on the outside, but I could see the main confrontation because I could see the two men.
Correct.
I could see him with the paper and the crayons.
Right.
The same thing, like when they're in a room, like somewhere, but that room could have been anywhere. It wasn't like necessarily he took us to a given place and was describing,
like the drone house. The house where they're operating the drones out of, like, really cool that it's, secreted away, and she helped set it up, and it's in the middle of it. It was kind of, I think, like a pretty well-off little suburb area. It's kind of nondescript, but I couldn't really picture anything outside of like a typical row house here in DC or something. Like, I don't know, that location didn't feel Tehran to me, and it was probably described very well, but I just didn't feel like I was there.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. The best time that I felt that he described what I'm envisioning and what I've like looked on, obviously we've been in this genre for a while. We've dealt with Iran before, so I've done my fair share of Googling, was Sam getting out, like exfil with Roya afterwards, like going through those checkpoints, going on the side streets, getting to the Caspian.
Yes.
That was the best part of, like, being felt like you're put in a location.
Completely agree. So, going down the rocks on the beach, going into the surf. I agree. That escape. And that's when the book was humming. That sequence really saved almost everything for me.
I'm not going to dig it too much. I'm going to give it a 4.
I was going to say, I think the 3 is a little harsh, but I'm going to stay there for what we talked about. But there were parts that saved it. For sure. Dude, cover. I mean, I don't know if you want to do free space first, but cover. I love it because it's almost what I wanted in the writing, because that screams Tehran, right? With the mountains and the snow caps and the tower. So I'm like, that's almost, I wanted to feel like I was at that scene, but look at this cover. I don't know if the writing took me to this exact scene in the cover or this backdrop.
There was only like a few times, like I feel like they're mentioning the mountains with, his father and like certain things with his mom.
That's true.
Like there was a little bit there, but yeah, no, I agree. This cover screams, like, it's, first of all, I love whoever has come up with like the McCloskey look.
They've been great.
We sing praises of good covers, and whoever's done these has been great. This one for sure, and it's where, like, I wanted more of this. Like, if we had gotten this on the page, then the setting would have been a 5.
Correct. But the cover, I think, might be a 5.
It might be. I'm gonna give it a 5. Just do it.
The number one reason is choosing the landscape. It was almost missing in the book, so seeing it on the cover is like, yes. And the other part is it fits the theme. I love when an author commits to the bit and their team commits to the bit, and they know what that author's style is, and they execute it perfectly. They've done it with every book so far, starting with Damascus Station right up to this. And so I think it's clearly a David McCloskey book. The yellow was such a great choice. The blacks and the whites are a great choice. And choosing the landscape is something I would have absolutely wanted for this book. So a 5 out of 5 for me on the cover.
All right, what's your free space?
There's a couple ways you can go here. We've talked about the ending a ton, so I kind of think that would be a cheap one because we've already sung its praises. Like that's the free space.
Mm.
So if I have to dig into another one, I think it's all of the recruitments. I think every scene where somebody had to play spy, recruit an asset, turn them to their cause, find what it is they're looking for in life and lie to them to get them to achieve it, starting with the dentist chair, but then also ending up with Glitzman capturing Roya and then ultimately having this plan for the dentist to run Roya. Everything about the recruitments in this book was absolutely knock-on perfect.
That's a good one. So if I had 5 extra points to give, I think I have to give it to the story arcs
Yes.
of Cam and Glitzman.
Yes.
To me, those two, and for some reason and I wish, I'm not the quote guy, like I said before, but I wish I had that quote where Glitzman pretty much lays out in the hierarchy of there's us. There's a clear delineation between, he's a Jew, but he's not one of us, so he is expendable. And to see that story arc play out for him, even at the very end, like what he's got, like teeth whitening, he's gotten hair plugs, like it's just interesting. Like this guy like has gone on like this midlife crisis, after getting his main asset taken, and like to have this as a successful mission, as like you think about it, they had a really good successful mission, but Cam got taken, and then I get the sense of like, yeah, he's not all this lovey-dovey at the very end, but to me, that was eating up at him, and he fought for Cam to get paid, like his monthly salary while he was away, to get the quote unquote what's the terminology, but essentially like bereavement, like you get a one-time bereavement pay for getting captured of $500,000. Like that's he's like, it's kind of crazy that's what the analysts judge our how much we're worth.
They put a dollar value on it. Yeah.
For the pain.
Glitzman became a human. He became a human.
Sure. Yeah. And then just seeing Sam, like to go from this guy,
but yeah,
sorry, not Sam,
not
Cam.
Sam Joseph.
No, interesting how Cam and Sam.
That's another big thing about this book, because Sam Joseph and Artemis Proctor are legendary characters, and to have a book that's just a complete another universe, kind of disconnected from all that and has nothing to do with them, like we said, no CIA. That's tough. Because something I want in a McCloskey book is an Artemis Proctor type character or a Sam Joseph type character, if not them, but as themselves.
I see some of Sam Joseph in Cam though.
I do too. So, this
guy that doesn't have like, he's not Mitch Rapp, he's not
right.
The gray man.
Sure.
But if he
I see
can
some
tap
Artemis
into
and
these, sure. Yeah, it's like a different sort of take on that character.
So I'm saying, like, for not having those characters in the book and not being in universe, if you will, this is a major triumph to still write a book this engaging, and that got me into it when I come into it thinking, like, how does this compare to Sam Joseph? How does this compare to Artemis Proctor? It's not fair comparison. Comparison's the thief of joy. But this book did enough to make me forget about that. So.
All right. So what did that give us?
I end up with a 39, and you were a little higher.
A little higher, 40.5.
Let's average that to a 40, because I think average together 40 is right where I probably would have pegged this book as I was reading it.
Interesting that we scored a 40, and yet I'm singing its praises as like one of my top books that I've read in 2026. But I don't know, for some reason it just stuck with me.
And you said it might be your favorite of his.
I don't know. I think it's like close to Damascus Station.
Yeah.
I think it's better than Seventh Floor.
I wouldn't have said it while I was reading it. Looking back on it, I think I would agree.
They're different. They're different. They're similar but different. It's
I'll absolutely say it's a better story. It's a better written story, for sure. I will absolutely say that. As a reading experience, I remember enjoying The Seventh Floor a lot, and I didn't enjoy this one for like a good third or half of it. So it's hard for me to compare, but in the end, this is a better work of fiction, I think.
But was it because we were bought into Artemis already?
Exactly.
That was the third time we had seen her. Like
completely.
All right. Well, all I know is that I'm David McCloskey. He put something out. I'm reading it all the way through.
Yep, absolutely. And we're covering it on this pod.
Yeah.
You know what else I'm doing for all of David McCloskey's books? I'm writing a limerick.
All right, let's hear it.
There once was a spy from Tehran. His dentist chair sparked a great plan. With crayon as quill, many secrets he'll spill, but one of true love is most grand.
Ooh, okay. You're stretching the rhyming there a little bit, but I like
I could have said Tehran, plan, grand, but I wanted to give it a little flair.
Tehran. Iraq or Iran.
Yeah.
What was that Lee Greenwood song or some shit like that? Yeah, that's good. That's good. No, it's guys, stick with this book. I highly, obviously, if you've listened this long, hopefully you've read this book. But if you haven't, go back, give it a second chance, read it. So next up on the pod, we are covering Chris Howdy's Dead Ringer. Super intriguing Kennedy retrospective. I am, like I said, I think I'm 15 chapters in, and I'm hooked. I want to know where the story goes. It could go off a cliff. I don't know, but
it's
we'll
wild.
See.
And I knew it was a JFK conspiracy kind of
me too. But
assassination story. I didn't expect what you get right in the very beginning. I did not expect it. And then it turns into like a Steve Berry kind of historical adventure. Wow so far. So yeah.
All right. Before we get out of here, got to thank our patrons. Speaking of patrons, tomorrow we're going to be talking to them. Hopefully next time when we talk, we can just debrief what we have from our so we decided we're talking about Fade In tomorrow, right? Per Mark? Right?
Absolutely. Fade In for Mark and Project Hail Mary on the side. So
yeah. Just kidding. But before we get out of here, we got to thank our patrons, our deputy directors, Sherry F. and Brad E., special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt, Don, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons. No limits. You can find us anywhere you can get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Check out our new website. Mike's put a lot of work into that. It's looking great. thrillerpod.com. Twitter and Instagram, @thrillerpodcast. And as always, let Cam be Cam.